Hey, what's up, Calgary? It's Robert the Realtor here, and I got a really special surprise for you guys today. We're starting a new segment on our YouTube channel, and it's called Fictional Homes. And that's exactly what we're looking at. We're going to be looking at fictional homes, whether that's from a TV show, movie, an animated series, and we're going to look at how much would this actually cost if it was in Calgary in 2026. It's going to be a lot of fun. There's a lot of, I think, really unique houses that we see on TV. So let's just dive in. I have a hint for you guys. I want you to guess what house we're doing today. First hint, it's hard to see, but I got a little whale on today. Anybody have a guess yet? No? Okay, well, this one will really get you guys. We're doing SpongeBob SquarePants' Pineapple Home. So let's dive into Bikini Bottom. Welcome to Bikini Bottom, home of jellyfishes. Now you could be asking yourself, Robert, how the heck are you gonna do this? SpongeBob lives in a literal pineapple and we live in wood and brick houses. You know, he's this big and we're 5 foot, 6 foot, whatever. What I'm going to do is I'm gonna take key aspects of his house and compare it to key aspects of our houses. We can see that he has a 1-bedroom place. Well, we can look at 1-bedroom places here. We can see that he's got a 2-story. We have 2-story homes here. So that's what we're gonna do in this video. So let's get started. So let's start with how big SpongeBob is. Because obviously he's a sponge, but I wanna make him relative to human size. So when we look at SpongeBob and his friends, he's kind of the smallest of the bunch. So I think we're gonna put him at say maybe 5'2" or 3" to kind of give him some perspective. Now let's look at his home. Now, compared to SpongeBob, you can see that his home is kind of over 2 times taller than he is. So I'd say this is about a 2-story house, probably not 3. And we can see that he's got stairs up to his bedroom. So let's say he's got a 2-story house. Now, if we're looking at how he looks beside his home and how far Squidward's home is beside him, we can see that he's got a decent amount of land too. He kind of has a front yard and he's got a big backyard. We'll put this backyard picture up beside me too. So you can kind of see he's got a good piece of land. And now these are the things that we want to compare with homes, you know? Some homes don't have really backyards, or they don't have front yards, or they're really close to their neighbors. So with this, we can kind of gauge the type of properties or the type of areas that SpongeBob's house would live in. It's time to go inside. So if you know anything about SpongeBob, you know that his front door opens to his living room, of course. Now, from the pictures we can see of his living room that he has his TV, he has that fish on the wall, or not necessarily a fish, but a fishing end, and he's got a couch. So what I'm guessing is that SpongeBob's home didn't come furnished, you know, it doesn't have the tables, it doesn't have, you know, the wall paintings. I'm thinking that SpongeBob probably had to bring his own furniture. This is something that we can see. Houses will let you know if they're gonna be finished or not. Now, when we move into the kitchen, we can see that it's a very nice kitchen. He's got everything he needs. He's got his fridge, the dishwasher, all of that. What we are seeing too is that his countertops are actually a surfboard, you know, so maybe it's a wood countertops, which we have in real life too. So that's a good comparison. We can see that it's not a granite countertop, which, you know, adds a little more value. So SpongeBob Kitchen is great, but we know it's not high-end luxury as some other homes. Now, I did some digging and I found that actually his bedroom and the bathroom lead up the stairs, as you can see in this picture. So once we get into the bathroom, it's actually great because we can see that this is a full 4-piece bathroom. You have not only the toilet or the sink, but you have a shower and a full tub. Now let's look at SpongeBob's bedroom. Now we can see it's actually quite a bit of space. You can see his bedroom, you can see Gary's little area and his big alarm clock thing. There's a lot of room around him. That makes me feel like it is a primary suite. Now, one thing I wanted to mention about SpongeBob's house is light. You can see from the exterior pictures that he's got one little window over here, one over here. Maybe there's one on the back, but honestly, there's not a lot of natural light. And that's something that we can really compare to homes here. You know, a lot of people really like natural light, big windows that lets all that, the sunshine in. SpongeBob doesn't really have that as much. There is, a window in his bedroom, so that is great. But in the living room, there's not a lot. Let's go to my favorite part of SpongeBob's house. And if you know, you know. He has a basement. He has the slide into this massive library, tons of books. Who knows if SpongeBob even reads, but this is a beautiful area that we can see. We can also see that there is another room connected to the basement. We know that SpongeBob doesn't have a garage. We know that he doesn't drive. So I'm guessing that this is probably a furnace room, or a utilities room where the water, well, not the water piping, but maybe the heating and cooling area is. So now the last area of the house is the rooftop. We can see in this picture that there's actually stairs that lead up to this trap door so that SpongeBob can sit on his roof. With Gary hanging out, there's enough room to put a chair there. It's a really unique part of the house with some privacy too from the leaves. The last thing I wanted to say about SpongeBob's house is we talked about his land, his property area, the key features of the home itself, but what about location? We can see that there's not a lot around SpongeBob's house. He has to walk to work. This makes me think that he's not downtown Bikini Bottom, so he's kind of in the suburbs a little bit. So this also plays a big aspect in the price of a home. So now that we've seen SpongeBob's pineapple, now we have to look at houses in Calgary that are like his house to try and get a comparable price for that home. So we're going to be looking at 4 types of homes. We're going to be looking at an active listing. An active listing is a house that's actually on the market right now. We're going to be looking at 2 pendings. Pendings mean that somebody has put in an offer on a house, but they have to maybe waive conditions. So they're inspecting the house, or they're making sure that they can get the financing. And we're looking at 1 sold. The reason why we look at active, pendings, and sold when we compare prices because we want to know what people are asking for houses today, what people are, willing to offer, and at what price those houses actually sold at. Those are key components when comparing a house to another house. So let's look at the 4 properties. Let's start with the active listing. Now this first house is the active listing. So this is 2514 16th Street Southeast in Calgary. We can see that they're asking $650,000 for this house. It just went on the market. It's got 2 bedrooms, 1.5 baths. So it's close to SpongeBob's house, but it's not exactly. For a house like this, you could probably take off $10,000, so it would equal SpongeBob's house for just the bedrooms. Now let's look at the first pending house. Also in the southeast of Calgary, they're asking $479,000, so much less. This is also a 2-story detached property, but it's got 4 bedrooms, 1 full bath, and 2 half baths. So that's actually a really good price for a home like this. Unlike the first one that we saw, this one doesn't have a garage either. So this one might be closer to SpongeBob's house in some regards, but there's more bedrooms. One thing I really liked about this house in comparison to SpongeBob's pineapple is the kitchen. Wood, surfboard as the countertop. Well, that's a good comparison right here. The second pending home is listed for $700,000, so a decent amount more. We can also see that it's a detached, but it's 2.5 stories, so a little bit bigger, 2 bedrooms, 2 full baths, 1 half bath. Also doesn't have a garage. But what I liked about this home in comparison to SpongeBob's house is look at the books. In each room, it's almost like got that library feel. Some of the comparisons, you really have to look further. You really have to look at the unique because some houses, like SpongeBob's pineapple, you don't see anywhere else. And there's an episode in SpongeBob SquarePants where his home gets eaten by those worms and he has to rebuild. Well, it's a custom house, you don't get that anywhere. So sometimes we have to look at more unique homes to try and get a good comparison. Now we're looking at the sold property. And honestly, looking at this, it's yellow. It kind of does look like SpongeBob's pineapple in a lot of sense. Now we can see that it was listed for $699,900. So almost $700,000, but it's sold for $680,000. We can see that it's also a detached property. It's a 2-story, again, 2 bedrooms, 2 full baths. So we can take away maybe $10,000 for one of the bedrooms, $5,000 for one of the bathrooms, also no garage. And looking at the interior, I think that this is a good or similar property to SpongeBob's. Now, looking at these 4 properties, we can kind of get a better sense of where maybe SpongeBob's house would lie. So after looking at these 4 properties, when you do a real CMA, a real comparative market analysis for your home, you would look at a dozen properties. But for the sake of time and for the sake of just SpongeBob's house, we're looking at these 4. So after doing the math and adding it all up and trying to figure out the numbers, SpongeBob paid for his pineapple $585,000. $585,000 for a house? That's approximately like 120,000 clams, because our dollar is so bad. But anyways, if you're thinking, how did SpongeBob possibly afford this house, especially as a fry cook? My philosophy is, if you're positive, good things will come to you. Good luck will come to you. And that's the definition of SpongeBob. And you can also say he's a saver. I mean, he wears the same square pants every day. So thanks for joining me on today's video. I hope you liked it, and I hope you kind of agree and don't think that's way too much or way too little for his house. I think that's like a pretty good price, almost $600,000. It's only a 1-bedroom, it's only a 1-bath, but he's got a fully furnished basement. He's got, that whole library in his basement with the slide, and the custom uniqueness adds a lot of value to his house. Comment down below which house or cartoon character you want me to do in the next segment. I won't tell you when it's coming out yet, so you'll just have to follow along. Thanks everyone. See you in the next one.